What's up, guys? This is Justin from the I Believe in Humans podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This show is made possible with the generous donations from patrons like yourself supporting us over at Patreon. So head on over to Patreon, check out the different membership levels we have, subscribe, and take advantage of all the extra cool bonus content that we'll be throwing your way that is exclusive to Patreon members only. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate the support. We'll see you next time.
It's one small step for man.
Welcome to Earth.
One giant leap for mankind.
What's up, man? It's Rick.
UFOs are real.
Welcome back to the I Believe in Humans podcast, episode 5. Hard to believe we're already at episode 5. Dustin, how
nice.
we doing, man?
Feels good.
I'm your
doing
host, Justin, and that is co-host Dustin. How you doing over there, Dustin?
What up? I'm doing fantastic, man. How you doing?
Right. I'm doing great, man. Look, so we've got our first 3 or 4 episodes are up and rolling pretty tight now. We're starting to get some feedback here. We love getting feedback, especially me. So what I wanted to do is just before we get into everything, I just had to make like a quick, what do the newspapers do? And they're like, look, I messed up something. I need to do a quick retraction or whatever. So it was brought to my attention that in the last couple episodes, I was trying to reference Senator Marco Rubio. Tomas, can we show who that is? So if you're watching on YouTube, this is the guy that I was trying to talk about, but apparently I kept calling him Marco or Ricky Rubio, which is
He's
this
a basketball
guy.
player. He's a great basketball player, though. Italian stallion.
So I'm pretty sure he's like from Puerto Rico or Spain or something. Yeah. So not Ricky Rubio. He's not the senator in Florida that we were referencing.
Marco's way more handsome.
Marco. We were talking about Marco. You're my boy, Marco. You're my boy down there in Florida holding it down. So anyway.
Hey, we're all human, man. We're all human. It's all good.
Hey, we all make mistakes. This is what happens when you're trying to get a podcast up and running during a pandemic, okay?
Yeah.
Mistakes can happen. There's a lot on our mind. I know there's a lot on your mind. Your daughter's going back to school soon, right? How are we dealing with this?
She is, yes. Starting first grade, man. It's kind of weird, though, because it's online now. We elected to keep her home and do the distance learning. It's just a different world now, man. So we'll see how it goes. She misses the interaction, which I understand,
For sure.
You want her to be socializing with these kids. I think that's where they grow and learn the most.
Right.
But we'll just go with the flow, see how she does. I don't want her in school, I'll tell you that. I bet you there's going to be an influx of kids in the hospitals here with COVID. It's kind of a scary thing.
Tough choices. Yeah, parents. I mean, look, luckily my kids are all young and they're not in school right now. Yeah. I got 3 under 4 or 5 or whatever. Yeah, pray for me. So I'm not there yet. So I am not envious of you or our listeners, anybody who's got kids having to make these decisions. They're not easy calls. So, all right, Dustin, well, I don't want to take up too much time because I know today we've got a big topic that's been hot on your mind for a long time.
Oh yeah, baby. I'm ready to get into it.
You've just been waiting for a platform to spread your poison in people's ears, all right? So today, guys, go ahead and drop your pants, grab your ankles, and strap in tight because Dustin's taking us down his rabbit hole. Today, we're talking about the moon, baby.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone. What was once the furthest outpost on the old frontier of the West will be the furthest outpost on the new frontier of science and space. Houston, your city of Houston, with its manned spacecraft center, will become the heart of a large scientific and engineering community. But if I were to say, my fellow citizens, that we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at 65,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that on the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do it right, and do it first before this decade is out, then we must be bold.
Must be bold, baby.
Must be bold. So, for those of you that don't know, that was JFK giving his moon speech there in it was a football stadium. It looked like down in Houston.
Yeah, it was I think it was in Rice University.
So he had a lot of mic drop moments there. He's talking about the Rice versus Texas football. I love the front deer. He's got his little Captain Picard going there. So that was kind of the speech that set the tone, right? It set us in motion in terms of not only getting us to the moon, but setting up the Kennedy Space Center and all that stuff. Because these programs were not cheap, right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about getting to the moon there, eventually we will get to the moon. That's going to be the Apollo 11 mission, right? And that landed on July 20th, 1969. That was Commander Neil Armstrong, which we all know is the first man to walk on the moon. We have the lunar module pilot, your boy Buzz Aldrin, who you met at Space Camp back in the day.
Buzz, baby.
And the lesser known that I had to research is the command module pilot, Michael Collins, who, look at you, you got him right off the top of your head.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know.
You're making me look like a rookie over here.
I feel bad for Michael Collins. Like he was
He get nearly the love.
He was stuck up there in the command
He's the third
module,
wheel,
orbiting the moon while they're down there, having fun, walking around.
So close.
Poor guy.
So far, Michael Collins. Yeah. So the Saturn V launches them into space. They lands them right at the Tranquility Base on the moon is where they land. So this is basically between 1969 and 1972. There's 6 crewed missions. 12 people have walked on the moon. This was all part of the Apollo program. And then after 1972, it all sort of stops. Obviously, you can hear in the tone of JFK's voice there, he's given a lot of stats, like the speed, the heat, all this stuff. And the one thing I take away from that is he's setting the tone that the stakes can't be higher for this, right? And you got to imagine the time. I just want to set the page, and then we're going to get into Dustin's rabbit hole stuff here. But we're talking Cold War era, right? So the reason why Kennedy's wanting to get us to the moon is because Russia has just been kicking our butts in space. Right? They're setting all these firsts. They're getting all these points in the win column. And we just decide, hey, it's all or nothing. We're going to the moon. Screw you, Russia. So the stakes couldn't be higher for that speech. So that was really cool. And this is a huge thing, right? This is a huge part of American history that we're touching on here. But not everybody believes that it went down the way it played out on television and in the history books. So why don't you fill us in, Dustin?
I mean, there's so many conspiracy theories based around the moon landing. I think the biggest one that's out there is that we never landed on the moon.
Right. I've heard this.
A lot of people believe that Stanley Kubrick, of all people, assisted the U.S. government in staging a fake moon landing. They point to a lot of his films as evidence as such. I mean, 2001, Space Odyssey, coming out in 1968, it was just about a year before we landed on the moon. So, I mean, I could see how they could feed into that. He has the set pieces. He has the experience of producing a film, based around space. But they also point to clues throughout his film, The Shining, which is kind of interesting. Is that Danny, one of the characters in the kid in the film, he's wearing an Apollo 11 U.S. sweatshirt. And if anyone knows where to find that, I want that sweatshirt. I'm gonna rock that on a Christmas sweatshirt party someday.
That sounds like an eBay Christmas gift coming your way, buddy.
Please do. Yeah. And then they also hold on this long shot of Tang in the pantry. You know what I'm talking about? Tang, it's like that powdery orange drink.
Do I know what you're talking about? The Tang.
It's like it was originally developed for astronauts, but people pointed these things as if they were clues that he left throughout the film as like an apology for his involvement in the moon landing faking. I mean, he's very well known for having deeper meanings in his films, and I love Kubrick's work, but I think it's reaching a little bit, man. I do not feed into that conspiracy theory at all. What do you think, JD? Do you think it's a studio produced moon landing?
No, not at all. I think that for a ton of reasons that I can unpack there. I'm a fan of Kubrick. He did Clockwork Orange and stuff too, right? Was that him? So yeah, I think. Look, after, I mean, what was it, like 30 minutes after the moon landing was televised, people were already coming up with conspiracy stuff. So as far as that stuff goes, what I would see is Stanley Kubrick is maybe he's just giving a little nod or Easter eggs to those things, less of hey, I totally faked the moon landing, more of hey, everybody thinks that I was a part of this, so let me just drop some things in here, right? No, I don't think that it was staged or faked at all. And I was researching the hell out of this, trying to make myself see the other side, but there's just too much facts. I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson, we were talking about this earlier. I found a clip from him, so I'm just going to totally paraphrase what he said, but it was basically the amount of money and effort and energy and manpower and all these things that it would take to fake the moon landing and to fool over 500 million people that tuned in for this thing that was televised. He said, with the amount of money and energy it would go into that, you might as well just go to the moon. For real.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Seriously, dude. It's for real. It's way too much money, way too much manpower. How many years of dedication from hundreds, thousands of people to put a man on the moon?
Right. So let me break down some of the individual things here that people were saying, which was one, you don't see any stars in the blackness of space, right? And it's
science describes that though.
Well, they're using cameras that are they're high-speed cameras, and you're a filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
When you're on a high frame rate, you need a long exposure to even get a single star because there's not a lot of light out there.
Well, what it is that they're exposed for the lighting on the moon, which is just lit up. When you look at the moon, it causes a full moon shining down at the earth. It's causing shadow at night because it's a lot of light. Imagine standing on the surface of the moon, all those reflections going on just straight in your face. It's hot in the surface of the moon, especially when the sun's shining right on it. It's really bright. So they're exposing for the brightness that's right there in front of them. Stars are too dim to pick that up.
If you're one of these people that think that, take your cell phone camera out of your pocket right now when it's nighttime, go outside and just take a picture of the sky. Just snap a photo, and then when you look at it, you're not going to see shit. There's not going to be any. You're not going to get any stars. Don't give me that shit.
Our cameras are getting better. Cameras are getting better. I got a couple.
Bro, this is 1969. Okay, it's not an iPhone 15
touche.
with 3 different wide lens angles and high speed. Whatever, dude. This is 1969. They have on the freaking moon, and they're televising. Let's just grasp that in 1969 they televised live from the frickin' moon, and we want to sit there and hold them. Well, why can't I see a star? Get out of here. Okay.
Well, there's a lot of things that science can explain and debunk about this. A lot of people are saying that the flag is moving because
the flag was
of either
other one.
Open window or air conditioning blowing it. But there's a sixth of the gravity on the moon than there is at Earth. So if you're twisting in a pole with a flag on it into the ground, it's just gonna start waving. When you look at that, it doesn't look like it's blown in the wind. It looks otherworldly because it is otherworldly. It's
right.
It's moving in that frictional space.
NASA literally said they knew there's no gravity in there. So if you just stick a pole in the ground with a limp flag, the flag is just gonna go down. That doesn't make for a sexy photo op when you're trying to be give the middle finger to Russia in the Cold War and be we got here first. Let's plant a fucking flag. So what they did is they wired the flag with this almost like pipe cleaner, flexi metal to kind of make it rigid up top so that it would actually be framed. And literally when you're watching them trying to plug it in, I don't know exactly who popped it in the ground, but the other guy goes by and bumps it.
Yeah.
It looks like he just bumps it. So the bottom of the corner just sort of bends it out. That's because it's framed with like an elastic, like flexi straw, basically, is what they wired into it so that it would be up there on the rack. And so I'm like sitting there, I'm like, do people even like Google this stuff? Do they even research like what they actually did? Because there's a perfectly good explanation for that. What are some other things that people are like thinking it's a film set? Like,
the quality of the pictures. They're saying there's no way that these astronauts could take this good a picture in their spacesuits. I mean, it makes sense in the spacesuit having to adjust exposure, focus, doing all that kind of stuff with these like gauntlets on their hands. But when you look at, they're not that great of pictures. And then the only pictures you see are the ones that are good. Like they actually released all the photos, and there's a ton of them that are pretty shitty.
right.
So, and they're also trained to do this.
Right.
They train before they go out there taking pictures and handling this equipment with in their suits.
Here's another thing where I come at from this is just like a dose of like just to be a wet towel on these people. It's like, all right, astronauts flying to the moon and landing, pretty smart people. Okay, probably can figure out how to work a camera.
Exactly right.
Okay,
I mean,
probably
a camera. I mean,
I'm watching stuff on astronauts where the lunar rover was breaking down, and they're figuring out how to engineer and make mud flaps out of duct tape and shit that's like falling off of the thing as it landed. Like these are high quality, smart individuals. I think they can figure out how to work the damn camera. Okay,
100%.
That's a cakewalk to them. They probably also altered things, like when you're pulling focus and you got a big old glove on your hand, just give them a bigger knob, right? And who cares? Guys, they're televising live from the goddamn moon.
Yeah.
To you sitting in your living room watching it on your black and white screen television. Why are they didn't know about high definition and Bluetooth and all this crap back then. So I'm thinking it's pretty good for what they did and what they were up against, right?
Yeah. Well, that was also another point of reference to these conspiracy theorists, is that we're trusting NASA. They're the ones that are getting this live feed. They're the ones that are editing this, because it's a quote unquote a live feed. We're not seeing a live feed from the moon. Are you kidding me? Like we watch sports on TV. That's not live, quote unquote live. They're telling us it's live, but they have a little delay so they could edit out the language and the new dude streaking across the infield.
Right.
NASA's going to edit out things that they don't want the world to know or think they should know, which I have potentially, yeah, but it's
potentially.
So there is missing time.
But I've got something to say about that too,
Okay.
because when I'm researching this stuff, and I know you're going to bring up the ham radio and stuff, I can already smell it. I can hear it coming. It's a freight train coming down the
I
tracks.
have a lot to talk about this topic.
But before we get there, look, what I've read so far from what I've read, the moon landing so far has been the most transparent, large, like government undertaking, whatever you want, to date. Just meaning
there's reasons for that.
Well, yeah, the reason was because they wanted to make sure that Russia couldn't come out here and say exactly what idiot Americans are saying for them, which is we never actually landed there. The whole point of being transparent was to be like, no, look, we actually did land it. And if Neil Armstrong wants to drop an F-bomb right now, he can drop an F-bomb. But the thing is, again, these are high quality individuals that are going up there. They're not the kind of guys that are going to be cursing and swearing on live television anyway. And there's only two of them, and they got a job to do. They're not up there ass grabbing on the moon. They're up there to rock and roll.
I'm not saying they're editing out their language. I'm saying they're editing out other things that they experienced on the surface of the moon.
I know
that
what
they don't
you're
want
saying.
the world to know. I also think that they also have to justify the funding. They're taking America's money, a lot of America's money, to put these dudes on the moon. They got to show some proof. But a lot of these conspiracy theorists buy into that we have to trust NASA. You know, there's only two guys up there saying that they're up there coming back, and they're controlling what we see. So I can kind of see where they're coming from that. But some of these guys are just bonkers.
That sounds
dude.
like trust issues. And like whenever someone's basing their opinions on like, well, I don't know about trust in this or that. Look, dude, at the end of the day, you got to trust someone, and stuff just sort of is what it is. So like, yeah, I get it. I don't want to trust everybody, but like, you just can't live, don't go outside of your house basically if you can't trust anybody. But the last thing I want to say about this is, look, just with the whole like stagedness of it.
Mm-hmm.
People think that, and you're a filmmaker, why did they go to Stanley? Why is it Stanley Kubrick?
Because he was the best.
Because he was the best. Okay.
He was the best at the time.
So we think, okay, they went out and they got the best director they could find to possibly stage this thing.
Mm-hmm.
To my knowledge, has Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong ever appeared in any films or won any Academy Awards for Best Actor in a motion picture?
Well, if that was fake, they should have.
100%. But we didn't send Daniel Day-Lewis up to go walk on the moon, or Humphrey Bogart, or
maybe
Cary Grant.
Maybe if we did, they wouldn't have these conspiracy theorists saying that it's fake.
All I got to say is if Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, two American heroes, were faking it and actors that whole time,
not.
and they held the lie and they held the act up until even Neil, who passed, usually these guys come out with like deathbed confessions and stuff, right? Damn, they're some good actors, and I just don't see it. I just don't think human beings can lie that long.
It's not even just them. There's the entire NASA program that's involved in that. How are you going to keep that many people quiet? Like that's
mountains of paperwork, thousands of people. No, I don't see it.
It's too crazy.
Next
Next
question.
And JFK was too passionate about this, and that's what makes it so sad that he wasn't able to witness us finally accomplishing what he set out to do. I mean, it was 8 years after his speech that we landed on the moon, and to do like that blew NASA away, because that was a big feat to accomplish. And that was, they sacrificed safety for speed to make that happen. And there was one astronaut in particular that was very outspoken about it, and that was Gus Grissom. And he was actually supposed to be the first man to walk on the moon. He was the commander of the first Apollo mission, Apollo 1. And sadly, he died in a horrible fire accident in the crew module. 3 men died, and these conspiracy theorists want to hold on to that too. They say that he was murdered because he was so outspoken against this, and he's one of those guys that he wouldn't agree with NASA to fake the moon landing. And it's like, come on, dude, this guy's dedicated his life to this. So he wants this as much as the other guy. He wants to get on the moon. He wants to do something that man hasn't done. Like they're not going to spend millions of dollars to murder someone that's not going to agree with them to fake the moon landing like that.
No, why
ridiculous.
Okay, so Mr. Conspiracy Theorist, right? If you want to take out someone like that, like look, JFK was shot, right?
There's a whole bunch of conspiracies.
That's its own conspiracy. I was going to say
be a 3-hour episode.
That has its own rabbit hole. But the point I'm trying to make with it is JFK was shot with a bullet from a rifle. Who pulled the trigger and all that stuff, you guys can go and speculate about that all you want. The point I'm trying to make is they just shot him, straight up shot him in the back of a car, right? Why would you go through the great lengths if you really wanted to really get at someone and to murder someone like that? You could hit him with a car. You could poison him. You could do all the spy tricks and stuff. Yeah. You don't set the whole damn thing on fire. Like, unless it was sabotage and then someone was just trying to sabotage the rocket launch, I don't think it was targeted on this specific guy.
It was just an unfortunate event, man. It's just really sad.
Like I said, I am not, but I hear where you're coming from. We're just addressing this stuff.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to breathe more life into
it.
But people are saying this and people believe this, so we do need to address it. And again, I'm not trying to just say, hey, if you believe this stuff, you're a total moron. I'm just trying to ask you to think of it in a more down to earth, pun intended, right? Like just put your feet on the ground and like try to like just think about this like logically from like a human, like you don't need to like do this big spectacle to get at one guy. You could get him. You could get at him while he's eating steak in a restaurant or something. You know what I mean?
We don't need to give out. We don't need to get out tips right now on how to murder it. Let's pump the brakes on that one.
Right. But. Sorry, I'll repeal my 007 stuff.
But
so
that was a tragic event, and that suspended the program.
That was big because that was on national television, I believe.
It was,
wasn't it?
But we ended up on the moon 2.5 years later, and that was another thing that these conspiracy theorists held on to, was the fact that the first launch of the Apollo program, we caught a fire and blew up a ship, but then 2.5 years later we're on the moon. It's like, because that was
Why not?
we learned from that shit, you know.
Right.
But there's this one filmmaker and conspiracy theorist in particular that just rubs me the wrong way, and his name's Bart Sabrell. And
He grinds your gears.
He grinds my gears. He was so convinced in this conspiracy that he harassed every single astronaut that stepped on the moon. What would you say? 12 astronauts have walked on the moon. He harassed every single one of them. He started. He was trying to make a documentary or a film or whatever, and he was going around with his camera crew, throwing cameras in these guys' faces whenever they step out into public, asking them to swear on a Bible. Like that's. I mean,
there's a famous clip of this, isn't there?
There is a famous clip. Buzz Aldrin, Tomas, do you got that queued up for us here?
Let's watch this guy try to get Buzz to swear on the Bible. And if you've seen this clip, you know what's coming.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon? Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
So he's chasing him down outside of a hotel here.
We'll call the police.
We pay.
Come on in here, we'll call the police.
And
You like that?
the hotel,
That you walked on the moon.
the maitre d' is trying to get in between him here and trying to get him out of there.
We just paid to rent out the penthouse to shoot up there. So
Can't solicit like this. I just
keep.
All right. Well, then
Buzz and his, I don't know if it's his
You gotta keep
daughter
shooting,
or a
man.
publicist or
Okay.
someone's with him.
Put it on your shoulder. Don't be shy.
Kind of went back into the lobby area here.
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I
you
misrepresented
get
myself.
away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
You don't call Buzz a coward or a liar. You do, you get knocked out.
Stiff right hook right to his jaw. Ooh.
Come on, man. It's an American hero. What are you harassing him for, dude?
Right. So that makes me feel good inside because like all I hear is just like America.
Victory.
Yeah, man. I mean, to be honest, that's how I felt like watching that clip is like, dude, I would punch this guy like a coward and a liar and all this stuff. That's what drives me the up of the wall the most with this stuff is like you're literally talking to guys that strap themselves in to the top of like a gigantic rocket to be launched into outer space with no idea of whether they were coming back. Like you said, the very first time they tried to do this, the damn thing caught on fire and everybody was killed.
Yeah.
So like the balls on these guys to do this. And they're not doing it for fortune and fame. When you look into Buzz Aldrin, he had like anxiety about like when they asked him like, were you disappointed you weren't the first guy to walk on the moon? He said, I wasn't because I didn't want to do all the interviews, right? He didn't want to be that big. So like the point I'm trying to make is like to call these guys character out is just like completely asinine.
Yeah, he was saying that if I was in that position and someone came up to me and said, swear on the Bible you walked, if I walked in the moon, I'd be like, give me 12 Bibles. It's like, dude, first of all, they're scientists, first and foremost. I mean, I could be wrong, but how much do they really believe in God? Second of all, I think that they're responding in that way because of the things they did experience up there. And that's the rabbit hole that I go down. That's the rabbit hole that I believe in, is that we landed on the moon. But I don't think that NASA was completely honest with what we experienced on the moon. And
You don't think we got the full story?
we did not. I don't buy into that at all. I think that whatever happened there changed Buzz and Neil down to their core. And there's some evidence of it. There's some of it's conspiracy, some of it's evidence. But I really buy into that they experienced something that scared them and changed them.
And at least you're looking for evidence because what you just said about that guy, I'd swear on 12 Bibles. Here's my biggest problem with these type of people and just sort of humanity in like a bigger scope is that people try to like look through the world through their own bias and who they are and what they would do. And it's like, who are you though?
Yeah.
You're just this one little tiny speck in this big grand cosmic scale. Your opinion doesn't mean shit. Sorry, dude. Sorry to burst your bubble, but the only one who cares what you think and what you would do is you. And you haven't walked a mile in anyone's shoes or 240,000 miles in someone's shoes, to quote JFK, to the moon and back, baby. So how the hell could you say what you would or would not have done when you're rocking light denim with like some sort of old man white Skechers going on there? And it's like, bro, you don't even like, these guys are like, to be an astronaut, you're usually like some sort of like Air Force or Navy fighter pilot.
Oh, you're
you have to go
dedicating
through
your
all
life.
this
You're dedicating
rigorous
your
training.
life.
You're, like you said, you're a scientist,
Yeah.
right? These guys are the highest caliber people we have on the face of the planet, the best of the best. And for some idiot to do something like that and be like, well, if it was me, okay, dude, we'll go back in time and you go through all the shit and all the training that they had to do. I
And
don't
then
see
get
you
harassed,
stracking
yeah.
yourself to a fucking rocket and going into space.
And then
That's
go through
what
the
grinds my
harassment.
gears.
Yeah, going through the harassment as soon as you step out in the public. Like, you're
Right.
already tired of coming out in the public. Neil stopped making public appearances because he was so fed up with it. Buzz kind of fed
Right.
into it, and he kind of showed a little crazy with him. And that's what
Right.
that's what I say, that it changed them after they came back.
Yeah.
They were never the same. Tomas, do you have that interview with Buzz? There was another little interview. It's only about a 2-minute interview. It kind of gives you a little idea of kind of the direction he went, and he has some good things that he has to say on there.
The thought occurred to me that, do I really want to be on the first one? And I came to the conclusion that I really didn't, because I could anticipate a little bit at that time all the commitments and responsibilities that would go along with being on that first flight. And I was a little apprehensive about all the public appearances and so forth. And I felt, gee, if I want to do it, fine. The second flight is going to do the same thing, maybe a little more. Why not go on that one instead of the first? At the time, you feel very much, or I did feel very much on stage. 240,000 miles away, it doesn't seem like on stage, but when you know that millions of people are watching on television, listening to your voice, you're, in a word, apprehensive of not doing something wrong or not fulfilling what's expected of you.
How disappointed were you that you were the second man on the moon and not the first?
I like to be associated with the fact that I was on the first lunar landing mission instead of being the second man to walk on the moon. But it doesn't bother me particularly. It irritates the heck out of my father, though. He's always looking out for the best things for his offspring.
Can you remember if you were disappointed when the decision was taken, a month or so before you actually went to the moon?
Oh, yeah, certainly disappointed. But I think that my life would have been a little more hectic had I been the first. Who knows, I might even decided to become a college professor the way Neil did.
You'd do it all again?
Yeah, I'm sure there'd be trying moments if I did it again. But having gone through it once, I'd be a much smarter person.
And yet, Buzz, it almost destroyed you.
Right? But I think I'm a better man for having experienced it.
So for those of you that are just listening and you're not seeing this, go to our YouTube and watch that interview. There's conviction in his eyes when that interviewer says, "But it almost destroyed you." The way Buzz looks back at him and says, "Right," and just that little pause there, that look in his eye. So I feel he experienced something up there that changed him forever.
Well, first of all, that interviewer is a total dick.
He came at him.
How are the first? I know that is probably a clip from a longer interview, but the first, how do you dwell on the questions of like, how disappointed were you to be the second guy? And I love his response. Well, I'd like to be associated as the first lunar mission, not the second guy to walk on. And it's just like, what a dick question, right? Like there's only one guy, the first guy out the door, so it is what it is. Anyway, I'd look at him and be like, "Have you been to the moon, bitch? All right, because I went to the moon and made it back. What the fuck did you do?"
Yeah, and there was a lot of things that went wrong in that mission for them to actually come back. Like that was just such a big accomplishment for mankind.
Yeah.
So I'm so sad that JFK wasn't able to witness that. But
right.
like I said, I guess we'll dive into this rabbit hole.
No. Hold on. I want to touch on before because I want to comment. I didn't just mean to call that guy a dick, but it was a dick move to ask those questions. he did experience something, and I know you're going to go into this and stuff, but every astronaut that's been into space and come back has experienced something. And whether or not it's aliens or UFOs or whatever the hell you're about to try to convince me it was, the very real thing that they all say is that have a different respect for the Earth and mankind. Because when they look back at that big blue floating ball in the sky or in the universe, right? They don't see governments and politics. It's all petty to them, right? All they just see is like clouds and ocean and land, and it's real beautiful. And just like you can see the civilization light up on top of it and stuff. And they come back with a new perspective. So I think it changes everybody. And that's why we want to hear from these people, because their experiences are so unique. And I love hearing from all these stuff. And I just can't imagine, like, now we've had like hundreds of people that have gone into space. So we have such a fuller vision. But at this time, that was an old clip and he's rocking like the Amish beard in that thing. And it looks like it's the 70s. Like, dude, in the 1970s, you're talking 12 people on the face of the planet have walked on the moon, and Buzz Aldrin was one of them.
One of the first. The second, he was on that first.
Of course,
mission,
it changed him.
And I mean, like you're saying, these astronauts are the most credible witnesses you can ask for. Almost every single one of those guys that goes up witnesses something, communicates back to Earth what they're witnessing. They try to debunk and figure out what's going on. But when it becomes unexplained, which the majority of the time it does out there, we have to take what they're saying as fact, because this is their field. They are trained in this field to witness this, observe this, dissect what's going on. There's no doubt in my mind
that's their whole job,
that they witnessed this thing. That I mean, when they went up, and this mission in particular, and even there was communication back to NASA, and there was also Buzz came out years later and confirmed it in an interview that 3 days into their voyage they noticed something following them, and they're on record saying that it was a mass of intelligent energy, quote unquote. That's pretty incredible to think about. It followed them essentially all the way to the moon, and they had to ask NASA, "Hey, could this have potentially been one of our boosters that we left in orbit when we got out of our atmosphere?" And they're like, "No, that's way off the mark." So what was it?
Intelligent as in it was under control, like making right angle turns? Like what would make it intelligent?
I don't know. NASA hasn't really confirmed exactly, but that is confirmed that it was that quote unquote massive intelligent energy. What that was and why it was, they haven't released, because NASA conveniently lost their data tapes for this entire mission. The only thing that we have to hold on to is the live broadcast that everyone got to witness in 1969. They just conveniently lost all the data tapes from a moon landing. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, see, now stuff like that, if that is in fact true, because and I'm not saying that you're not telling the truth. I just personally, I have not looked into that. So I'm just saying, if that is true, that is total bullshit.
That is a fact.
Right?
That is a fact.
You can't lose stuff like that. You can't just be like, hey, mom, Mom, you recorded over my high school baseball game where I hit 2 home runs. You know what I mean? Back on VHS tapes, if you need to get the reference.
Happen.
Right?
It can happen.
Dude, you don't record over the moon landing, and you don't lose that footage. So, I get what you're saying. That is kind of. But let me ask you, were they
the wrong way?
Here's. You're getting your gears grinded a lot today.
I do, man. This is a topic that I dive into this rabbit hole.
I don't know if this is a question for you, but my question would be, were they even recording this? Because it's a live feed, right? It's going straight to like ABC, NBC, all the major networks. Well, we know the major networks are recording, but like, is NASA actually? I'm assuming they would, because I'm assuming
recording. They have to.
You would want to.
You have to analyze the data. You have to know, like, if something goes wrong, you want to know, you want to learn from that. You want to train off of that. Of course they're recording. That's procedure. There's no way they're not recording all that data.
Yeah.
And they said they had it, but they lost it.
That's because even if you even like forget aliens, it just lends itself to wonderment and conspiracy, because you would think at the very least you'd want that footage like in the Smithsonian somewhere or somewhere in the Museum of, Air and Space down in DC. Like you'd want to be able to go and check some of this stuff out. And I'm sure they have a lot of cool stuff there, but you would definitely want to see the footage and whatever, rather than just the curated photos that were pre-selected for you. So I'm with you. I'll give you I give you an inch. I'll give you an inch.
I will take it. That was one of a few different events that happened.
All right. What else?
Unexplainable events that happened. When they were they were in the lunar module orbiting the moon, Buzz caught this on his camera, which they do have, and it's like this white object speck flying across the surface of the moon. I mean, it could be anything, I guess you could say, but it's
like a Tic Tac cigar shape, something like that.
It was just a white dot moving and grooving. I'll just see if I can find that.
It's pretty thin.
I don't think we have that. Thin. Yeah, I don't think we have that queued up for Tomas. But what I this is the part of the conspiracy that I dive into that I know JT doesn't agree with me on this, was that during their mission, they had this medical channel that they could switch to when they wanted to talk about things they didn't want the general public to hear. And there is about 2.5 minutes of unaccounted for broadcast that they supposedly switched over to this medical channel, and there were hundreds of people listening to this broadcast in their own ham radios. And they picked up this signal, and what they heard were them communicating with NASA. This is when they landed on the moon, there was just this weird 2 minutes of nothing. And what these people tapped into were Buzz and Neil communicating with NASA that they can see crafts parked along the crater, multiple ships, and they're watching them. Something along those lines. There was also, during that first 30 minutes, there were rumors swirling around NASA, mission control there, that after they landed, Buzz and Neil were hanging out in the lunar ship, and they saw something along the crater that made them uncomfortable, that they were upset about, and they weren't sure if they wanted to step on the moon.
Right.
And that was, I don't know exactly how long it was, but I think it was somewhere along the lines like 4 to 6 hours before they even ventured to step out. I'm sure what I think happened is that there were a couple alien spacecrafts parked along the crater, with just surveilling this. I mean, it feels like the entire mission was being watched and surveilled. If I was another alien race, monitoring what we're doing in civilization, I mean, I'm going to be curious. They're like, okay, finally, the humans are going to come to the moon. Let's go get front row seats, crack some popcorn, and like make a couple bets. See what happens, So that's what I kind of buy into. It just doesn't, a lot of things kind of just don't add up and don't make sense, to where if these claims are true, I can see why Neil and Buzz kind of went off the rails there. And they also, like, Neil is completely against commercialized space travel.
Right. And so before we go too far, before we get too far off of this, because I'm going to tug on this thread here real quick.
Go for it. Yeah.
Right. I just got to get in there on this when we're here, which is, okay, so the ham radio thing. We already mentioned that this is like the most transparent thing that ever could have been done. The medical channel was like, if there was an emergency, I got to poop, whatever you got to do, right? That's what the medical channel's for. Okay. But yeah, we don't have access to it as like the public. They're supposed to have some sort of secret communication or whatever. Not necessarily about aliens, but, just private matters. Maybe, you don't want to be like your wife and kids are watching the broadcast and you're like, NASA, I can't drive, the motor went out. You know what I mean? Like that's with that stuff, right? Okay. So anyway, the ham radio thing is, I searched high and low to find a recording, a transcript, something other than just hearsay in terms of people say they heard this. Okay. As far as I can find, NASA has never confirmed that was ever said. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin themselves have never confirmed
nor denied.
Okay. All right, Fox Mulder. Okay. So the point I'm trying to make with the ham radios is, and this was a point that I found out when I was researching, is look, at the end of the day, NASA knew that these ham radios and stuff were going to be able to interfere and listen in. And that's why that was why they moved towards as much transparency as they did, is because, look, at the end of the day, you're figuring the Russians are watching this as well. Okay. And so if anybody's monitoring this, as close as anybody and scrutinizing it and combing over everything they're doing, it's going to be the Russians. And do you think the Russians are going to just allow the Americans to like have like communications about aliens and stuff like this and not be like making moves and doing different things, right? Because what people don't realize is the Russians never go to the moon. Right. And if you watch Ancient Aliens and Hangar One, the MUFON show, right, they'll talk about this stuff and they'll say it's because there's some sort of pact that was like, hey, basically, let's stop going to the moon. That's why I said, after 1972, apparently funding runs out, and that's why we stopped going. But it doesn't make sense. Even during that time, von Braun, right, the V2 rocket engineer, he's already saying in the 1970s that he could get us to Mars and back. So we just all of a sudden just totally pull the plug. So that's a little eyebrow raising. I'll give you that. But the ham radio thing, I'm not buying it, because you got to show me evidence on something like that. Not a bunch of guys listening to the thing in their freaking garage saying they heard something, okay?
Well, I mean, it was 1969. The technology wasn't as great. I don't know if there's recordings out there that got suppressed, which was a lot easier back then to suppress that kind of information.
Sure.
But that's why it's a conspiracy, and that's why it's not fact.
Right.
As far as the Soviets, I don't think it mattered if they chimed in and listened about aliens, because I think that they were privy to that as well. I think that's what kept them from the moon. I think they failed to get there, but I think that they had knowledge of that as well.
Here's what I'll give people an inch on this: is if you believe in Roswell. Right? Roswell happened in 1947. So if you believe that alien crafts actually crashed in Roswell, which is essentially the birth of the modern UFO era as we know it, but as we dig deeper, I was quoting you before we even started the show. There's a newspaper article from 1897 talking about a UFO crash. So it was happening way before Roswell. The point I'm saying, this is the modern era. So let's say you believe in UFOs starting in 1947. By 1969, we're going to the moon and back. Look, if you believe in UFOs back in 1947, you definitely believe in UFOs in 1969. And all I'm saying is, if they were hanging out and crashing in the desert in Roswell, New Mexico, you can bet your bottom dollar that they were taking a gander at the moon trip. It just makes sense, okay? And again, I'm not saying that that's what I believe. I'm just saying if that it comes to be fruition, that UFOs and aliens are real, it makes sense that they would be in on this mission. So that's as much as I'll give a headway to this. Is if you're a believer, then you're going to believe that.
Let me ask you.
I just need to see proof.
Yeah. Do you believe in UFOs? I mean, with the stuff that's coming out now, I mean, I know you're more open-minded to it, but do you believe that we have that technology? Because it's definitely possible that technology is ours now, or we have that technology. Right. What's your stance on that?
So like I've been saying, I think something's going on here. I think the power of the cell phone camera, I think the power of the internet and the information age and sharing has made this a lot more irrefutable. I think I agree with Michio Kaku, who's the famous physicist and instructor. He had a quote that said something, and I'm paraphrasing it here, but it was like, basically the burden of proof used to fall on the believer to try to prove that UFOs are real. But now we're in an era where the burden of proof is on the government to try and prove that these unidentified flying objects are not real and are not from an off-world or outer space manufacturer. So do I believe in UFOs? Yeah. Does that necessarily believe that I'm in a rush to like aliens and bases on the moon, surveilling us? I don't know about that.
Well, do you believe that we have the technology for anti-gravity propulsion and these type of vehicles? Do you think
I believe
have that
I believe
capability?
Bob Lazar. I believe Bob Lazar when he talks about that he's seen this stuff and that he was working on it, because his story sounds very factual to me in terms of how human beings operate, in the sense of all the information was compartmentalized, and in doing so, by keeping it such a secret and compartmentalizing everything, they ruined collaboration and the scientific process. So if they did have these things, it makes sense that they have not been able to make any headway in terms of reverse engineering them.
Okay, so
and also I think that they might exist. I don't think that human beings have found a way to replicate it.
So between then and now, you don't think that decades of time where you haven't been able to reverse engineer those things? Maybe some of them are already working still. I mean, what do you say? We had 9 crafts that they were.
He said they could fly him around. He said they could.
Go.
He said they could hover them or whatever. So at least one of them worked or something.
If in the 70s and 80s they were working, imagine where that technology is 30 years later, 40 years later, 50 years later.
Well, Bob Lazar's story came out in 1989. So, yeah, I mean, they could have made it farther. It depends on our chemistry and our material, like our technology. How far have we advanced in terms of surrounding technologies? Because it's not just about like reverse engineering that; it's about being able to like replicate and duplicate the manufacturing processes. Not just do they exist or not.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, say they do exist. Say that we have the technology to with these crafts. If we already do, so we have a secret space program that the public doesn't know about because they don't want this technology getting to our enemies' hands. So we have a secret space program. We're already going to the moon. We're already going to Mars. If we have a vehicle that can just move in and out of our atmosphere at a high speed or rate, why aren't we making that trip? Maybe we have a base on the moon by now, you know?
Well, and that's been sort of my contention to this is like if we did have this technology and this capability, I get that we would want to sit on it and not let your enemies in on it, right? But at the same time, you'd want to use it, right? Like you'd want to take it out and drive it and accomplish things with it. And why would you be wasting your time and money building archaic rockets to shuttle people to the moon or Mars? And why would you be wasting money on programs like SETI, right? Searching for extraterrestrial life via like radio waves, fast wave radio bursts, and all these different methods. And what they're looking for out there is intelligent life. And what you're telling me is that we've got 9 spaceships parked in a garage at Area 51 that already prove this, that we've already found intelligent life and we've been communicating. That's what I don't understand is, and that's why where the whole idea of government conspiracy, that's where I get off the train, because I don't think that you would have these two things. If there is a conspiracy, it's a very small group of private sector people that are in on this, that are not like elected officials and the part of the military apparatus, because the government, as we know with NASA and all stuff, they're just trucking along big, heavy government one step at a time, building rockets and doing all this stuff. You're right. Like, that's what I'm saying is we would be using it.
Well, that's the thing though, is that's why it's private. If it's a secret space program, like I said, they want to keep it out of the public eye. They want to keep it out of their enemies' hands. They don't want us to know that that they have this technology yet because of the things that it can create. But if they can still go, they're going to go.
Here's the one thing I'll give you as far as like, here's the one thing where I would give you in terms of like moon bases and stuff like that is this. So when I was researching this thing, there was another clip I saw of like mysterious, what looked to be like footprints and like a weird track. So it wasn't something that like crashed on there. And these would have been like massive, like footprint type things. And what someone said is that actually just looks like, because they said we found a similar structure on Earth. And on Earth, what that series of patterns looks to be is it's a lava tube. And it's this hollowed out lava tube. And basically in certain areas, it's either caved in or whatever. And it's created these depressions in the Earth. And they found that and we know that part of the moon's birth story is lava tubes. So that's why the one side, you have the darker side that faces us. There's like a dark and a light to it. That's
the crater, like big old meteorites that hit that, right?
It hit it and stuff, but the creation, the modern theory now is it's
once it hits it, lava seeps through the basin and then dries out.
I'm talking about the creation of the moon. So one side, the dark side of the moon is the crust is thicker. The side that faces us is thinner. And the reason and what they think about that is basically the Earth used to have, this was like 4.5 billion years ago, Earth used to have 2 moons that circled. One was smaller, and they call it like Theta I was going to call it Thelma or something. Look it up. I'm totally forgetting the name. Look, Thelma. So Thelma is like the little brother, and they're circling
little sister.
They're circling Earth, and basically the smaller object is catching up to the larger object until eventually it collides and they meld into one. And that's why they think that it's thicker on one side than it is on the other side. But that merging of this like hot magma, moon, Big Bang, solar dust, whatever planets are made of, combined into one thing, and that was intense heat and created these lava tubes. Anyway, wow, my brain hurts trying to explain that right now. If you can tell, I'm not a planetary science, so if you know someone who can explain that better than me, by all means, message us.
Let's bring him on the show. Yeah,
I would love to interview you and have you explain that better than me. But anyway, my point being is, these lava tubes exist on Earth and on the moon. On the moon, they seem to be huge, cavernous type stuff. And this is no joke. This is not conspiracy theory stuff here. NASA and pretty much like Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos, these people that want to go to the moon and establish moon bases, their game plan is to build cities underneath the surface of the moon in these caverns. Okay? And we've already kind of done this here on Earth. We've mapped out a lot of these lava tubes, and you can walk through them and occupy them, and we store stuff in there. So my point being is, if there was a moon base up there, wouldn't the aliens do the same thing that we're thinking of doing, which is build the base under the surface of the moon in the lava tubes?
Of course.
So one thing is, it's not so far-fetched to think that aliens could exist underneath the surface of the moon if we ourselves are having the same. If we ourselves are having the same game plan. It makes sense if we consider ourselves intelligent life forms.
Well, that would be the best. That would be the best place for a base, because the moon is dangerous. I mean, I could see why the program got.
There's no atmosphere. There's no gravity.
There's no atmosphere. So when there's meteorites coming in, that's hitting that thing quick. So I mean, even having our astronauts walking on the moon, that was dangerous for them, because it's hard to walk on the moon. So if you trip or fall and like the gravity doesn't catch you and you keep going and you rip your suit on a moon rock, you're done for. You're in some serious trouble. If a meteorite comes and rips you a new one, you're dead. It's
also got this like really fine moon dust that apparently gets in everything.
Yeah,
and it's really like you can't. It really gets into like the breathing apparatuses and stuff like that.
Yeah, all the astronauts were complaining about it because it gets all over your suit and.
So the moon base lava tube thing, that could be a thing, and that and this is me going down the rabbit hole with you. The other thing I thought of is maybe instead of aliens, there's a lot of people talk about, because like I said, do I believe that they're necessarily extraterrestrial? No, maybe not aliens. Okay, but hang with me here for a second.
I'm with you.
If we think UFOs are real, and UFOs run on anti-gravity propulsion. I'm no physicist, but the word on the street is, if you can control anti-gravity propulsion systems, you can warp space-time. So you can travel. You can travel faster than the speed of light. You can travel in wormholes. You can bend space and time. You can be from here to Mars instantaneously if you wanted to. But with that type of energy, you could also theoretically travel interdimensionally.
Well, time and space are theoretically the same exact thing.
Right, but this brings up the idea that maybe these visitors and crafts and these things that we're seeing are us from the future. So that's what I'm saying is, if we are now here in 2020 talking about launching a rocket to go and build cities in lava tubes on the moon, maybe we've already done it.
Yeah, and I think that's why they're surveilling us, to make sure we don't fuck shit up, because if we die, they die. They don't exist no more. So maybe they could be coming, surveilling. If they're traveling
back in time,
interfering with our civilization from time to time to make sure we don't blow each other up with nukes. It makes sense in a weird way.
Well, let me throw one at you. Let me take you down a rabbit hole real quick.
I
This
like
is
it.
another one.
What
All
you
right.
got?
So
What you got?
here's one. Some people out there are saying that when we get to Mars, that we're going to find sort of evidence of civilization, past civilizations, right,
Yeah.
that have been eroded and whatever. Some people think that what we're looking at in terms of Mars, because most scientists agree that Mars at some time had an atmosphere and was a very Earth-like planet, right? It
Well,
had
it still
water.
technically has an atmosphere. It's just not.
It's very well.
It's very dangerous.
No, it's only like a tenth of ours. So, like, if we wanted to survive on Mars, we'd have to terraform and literally create an ozone layer and create atmosphere around it. But the point I'm trying to make is, at one time, it was a very Earth-like planet. There's valleys, there's all these mountains and valleys, and it looks like there was running water at some point. We think if we could get into the surface, you could
No,
find
there was one. They've proved that there's running water.
subterranean.
They proved that there still is water there.
Yeah, they think there's subterranean like rivers and stuff that we could tap into. And again, we could live probably under the surface for the original time being. My point being is some people think that maybe humans or a civilization that predates us used to exist on Mars, got into some sort of nuclear war type stuff, and that possibly nuclear weapons. What we're looking at when we're looking at Mars, we're looking at like what would have happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis, Cold War. There's a reason why Cold War activity, we saw a huge jump in UFO activity. And a lot of these people are saying that they were responsible for halting the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
wow. Yeah.
They didn't want World War III to go down. So what do you say to those people, Dustin? You're Mr. Moon. You love everything, all things moon. But what about the Mars? You think Mars could have been something that like we messed up in the past, in a past life or something, got nuked, and now there's no more atmosphere? It's all
I think that's
radioactive.
possible. I don't know exactly what happened over there. I think that there may still be life over there. And if I buy into the fact that we've already reverse engineered these vehicles, so I think it's very possible that we already have a secret space program that already has established themselves on Mars. I think that they already know what's going on over there. There's pictures also of different quote unquote structures, some things that look like Egypt, like the pyramids and the Sphinx and things like that, that will be very interesting once we get there to finally dig into that, if they ever release that information to us.
I will say that it's pretty interesting that after 1972, nobody else went to the moon. We'd never been back. And in the last, what is it, like 5 years, there's all of a sudden 13 new countries, space agencies that are launching Mars rovers. Like there's all of a sudden this weird race to get to Mars. Like we've always been interested in Mars because of like, I feel like movies and stuff, like, you know, back to the H.G. Wells, the Attack of the Martians and all this stuff. What I'm thinking is that all of a sudden all these countries have this interest in Mars, and it's like whoever gets there first wins. And I'm wondering, like, what's so special about Mars? Like, what do these people know? What's the big, how do you go from 1972 to 2000 and basically 15, nobody does shit, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we all got to get our rovers up there real quick. You got Japan's landing on asteroids, like they're mining all this. All of a sudden there's this huge, tremendous global push. That's not just US. I know we're speaking because we're Americans, so we're speaking about NASA and stuff a lot, but we don't even, I'm trying to keep up worldwide. Every country, United Arab Emirates just got up there. Japan's going there. Russia's going there, right? Anyway.
Well, I think we have the people with the passion and the money to do so now, to where the world needed that money funneled into different things because we've been going through our own issues. But I think with the direction that science sees our weather, our global warming going, we need to start making progress towards becoming multiplanetary if this world's going to shit. So sooner the better.
I'll quote Neil deGrasse Tyson on that, which is, if we have the money and the means to become multiplanetary and to terraform Mars and to turn it into Earth 2.0, we have the capabilities to do that and like make Mars Earth, why wouldn't we just make Earth Earth? Why wouldn't we repair Earth? You see what I'm saying? Like if we can terraform a whole nother freaking planet and turn it into a habitable space, why can't we do that here? That's my question.
That's a great
I don't have an answer for you.
I don't know.
Why aren't we doing that here?
But if we can't, but my question is, if we can do all those things, why not?
I get it, but do you see what I'm saying? Is like
Yeah.
you're coming up with an escape plan. You're not even like
I
willing
wouldn't call
to
it an
fix
escape plan. It's just
bro,
I don't
going
know,
that's
it's
literally
it's
Elon
like,
Musk's whole
I
thing.
got my dream home and I got my beach house. I
Oh
got
my
my
God,
Mars
get
beach
out of here.
house.
Get out of here. All right. Well, speaking of Elon Musk and privatized space, because I feel like we're going that way anyway, you were starting to say that Neil Armstrong was not a fan of commercialized space travel.
He was not.
Why? Do you know
Exactly.
why?
No, I mean, what I believe, Tomas, why I'm making this point. You can queue up. We have a little interview with Elon about how he feels. About what Neil thinks about what he's doing, but I feel that Neil witnessed some stuff up there that he doesn't think our civilization is ready for, aka aliens, and he is completely against commercialized space travel because of what's up there and what the world's going to end up finding out soon. And I think that's why things are coming out now, is because of the push that they're making with privatized space exploration. Tomas, you can play that clip now.
People who've been in the rocketry business for decades, who say about you that you don't know what you don't know.
Well, I suppose that's true of anyone. How can anyone know what they don't know?
But when critics say you can't do this, your answer to them is,
we've done it.
He's done it in partnership with NASA, which has given SpaceX technical advice and a contract worth up to $1.6 billion, mostly for 12 cargo flights to the space station. But SpaceX's lack of experience bothers some NASA legends like Apollo astronauts Neil Armstrong and Gene Cernan. They've testified to Congress that the Obama administration's drive to commercialize space could compromise safety and eventually cost the taxpayers.
Now is the time to overrule this administration's pledge to mediocrity.
You know, there are American heroes who don't like this idea. Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan have both testified against commercial spaceflight and the way that you're developing it, and I wonder what you think of that.
I was very sad to see that because those guys are, those guys are heroes of mine, so it's really tough. I wish they would come and visit and see the hardware that we're doing here. And I think that would change their mind.
They inspired you to do this, didn't they?
Yes.
And to see them casting stones in your direction.
It's difficult.
Did you expect them to cheer you on?
Certainly hoping they would.
What are you trying to prove to them?
What I'm trying to do is to make a significant difference in spaceflight and help make spaceflight accessible to almost anyone. And I would hope for as much support in that direction as we can receive.
Great.
Yeah.
First of all, that dude is a good interview. He has a strong jawline and he asks really good questions. Those are great questions. He was obviously reading the room. For people that have either seen that clip before and again, watch it on YouTube. But Elon's like halfway through that. He's got the water in his eyes and it's nice to see baby Elon. This is an old clip on 60 Minutes because he's so young in that clip, dude. Way before all the stress of actually getting into space. But like, that dude's asking good questions and he's really like vibing, like it's clearly emotionally moving Elon there. And I don't understand why. The only thing I can think of, I know you're saying alien stuff, I would counter that and I would say maybe that these astronauts didn't think that we were ready for commercialized space because they thought this is something that we should leave up to nations because nations have governments and governments pass laws and there should be some sort of like, I don't know, like they don't want to see space turn into like the Wild West, which is what I was referring to like in an earlier episode. I think it was episode 2, we talked about space race, which was like the formation of a space force, which is if we're sending corporations are going and they're mining asteroids and going to the moon and making it a gas station to go to planets, basically you got to like govern that somehow. You have to somehow have like a law enforcement agency that just makes sure like you're not like, hey, we were here first. Nah, I want to mine this asteroid. Well, fuck you, I'm going to blow you up. And then it's just like hell on earth breaks out because of a fight on an asteroid. You can't have that.
I get that, but why wouldn't Neil kind of offer go through the right motions, make this thing happen, because it's what he's doing is making space travel more affordable and making space exploration happen now. I mean, it's different. That was a while ago, when they're going through their trials and tribulations. So maybe it's if Neil was still around now, maybe you would have a different opinion on what Elon's doing.
I think he would. Yeah. I mean, I think that it makes sense. The whole idea of like the reusable rockets, right? Everything that they've done, they've pushed the envelope so far. It's great. And what they're doing is it's not going to be long before we see these applications have real world impact on our lives, right? This is how it always happens, is the military and the government gets it first, right? For soldiers in battle and combat, right? That's where all the money is in defense contracting. So they get all the high tech toys and the cool shit. And then like 5-10 years later, we get it in like video gaming and in the cars we drive, and like we get the gadgets later. Right. So I think Elon's just was like ahead of his time. And just like any pioneer who's ahead of their time, you're going to get pushback. You're going to get these old dudes, these old white guys, for lack of a better word, that just want to stick to the way things were. That's all they know. That's their paradigm. Yeah. Right. But that's why I'm saying I think we're the generation to push past that, because we're not part of the baby boomer age. We understand that, like, if you're not adapting and you're not changing, you're not overcoming this stuff, that's just a part of life. If you're staying stagnant, you're not progressing, and you're not going to be a superpower anywhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's my opinion. You think it's aliens, and that's why he's up in front of Congress saying,
well, okay, at this point, you all know where I stand on this topic and right. what I feed into with these conspiracy theories. But right. there's one more thing I want to touch up on. And you actually brought this to my attention. Tomas, if you want to cue up our last little interview here, it's a short one. It's another one with Buzz, but he's mentioning a monolith.
This is like Buzz's greatest hits, bro. I love it.
He is in an interview talking about a monolith on the moon of Mars, as if it's fact. And you brought this to my attention. Yes.
Yeah, this got my attention. So yeah, let's cue that up. Let's roll that one, Toe.
We can visit other people with their habitation. We can keep track. If there's something very important to be developed from the moon, I'm not sure what it is right now. And I sure think we should identify what it is for America to make such gross expenditures again for human habitation on the moon. We can help. We can join with. Together, we can explore the moon and develop the moon. We should go boldly where man has not gone before. Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? Who put that there? Well, the universe put it there. If you choose, God put it there.
Nice answer. The universe put there. And that's a short clip. And you could tell at the end of that clip that the guy interviewing him was like, wait, what?
What's going on?
Like he starts to be like, what did you just say right now, Buzz?
Paperwork, looking at his producer like, what do you want to have?
They're like, here we go. Go to commercial. Go to commercial. No, Buzz just dropped, like, he just like casually drops that in. And this is what we're talking about though. Like, look, obviously you know where I stand. You know where you stand. You're like, I feel like you really like this stuff, and there's a little bit of confirmation bias when you're seeking out stuff. And I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm guilty of the same thing. I don't believe in the conspiracy theory stuff. So when I seek out information, which there's a lot that debunks this stuff, which is, sort of fuels my fire, I'm searching with my own biases, and we're both sort of getting what we need out of this. But when you see something like this, it sort of changes and rocks both of our minds, because I agree with him when he says it perked my ears, because when he says, I think when people find out about this, that they're going to want to do this. And what that makes me think is, well, first of all, he's right, because what's the name of our show? I Believe in Humans. I'm constantly trying to take the humanistic approach, which is, I can't stand this fucking obsession with they're keeping a secret because the public doesn't want to know, or the public isn't ready for it. Fuck you. Okay. And I'm not one to drop F-bombs on the show all day, but fuck that, okay? Because you're not our parents. Don't tell us what we can and cannot handle What we want to know is the truth. And then I'll be the judge of what I can't freaking handle. You know what I mean? So when he says the universe or God, if you want to, he has to kind of like pepper that in there, because what he's saying is it exists, and we don't know why it exists. And whatever your rationale is for why it exists, that's okay. It's a level playing field. But the fact is, he's pretty sure that it exists. And if you know it exists, you're going to want to go there and find out. And I can't agree with him more.
And I can't wait to find out. And I think we are well on our way to Mars.
And that was. Let me ask you:
moon.
was that the first time you ever? I didn't even know Mars had a moon, and I feel stupid for saying that out loud. I'm sure people are like.
I think it has multiple moons, actually.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then now you're going to sound stupid if it doesn't have multiple moons. So you're on the same stupid boat with me.
I am like 90% sure it has somewhere between 2 and 5 moons. I think in like 5th grade, I did like a project report on this, and
my God.
And my education failed me that I don't know this right now.
Right. It's like 60% of the 60% of the time it works 100%.
Yeah, I used
of the
to know the
time.
names of the moons too, and it failed me.
It's made with
failed me.
It's made with bits of real Panther, so you know it's good. So, well, no, that's it. I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of information. We don't know everything, but we're investigating, and we're just trying to bring these conversations and ask these questions. Just bring them to the surface, bring them to the light. Whatever the side of the fence you guys fall on, whether you agree with Dustin, whether you agree with me, who cares? The point is we're having the conversations, and just like Buzz said, if we start to find things, just like there's a lot of pictures out there about other things on the moon that people have found and think they see in there. And it's like, okay, it's a flip of the coin. Could be a shadow play. I don't know. Look, there's a lot of stuff out there. But the point is, whatever side of the fence you fall on, good. You're curious. You're looking, you're investigating, you're asking questions. This is how we move the ball down the field, so to speak. This is how we get results, by asking questions and being inquisitive. Because like Buzz said, if we saw a monolith on top of the moon, we're going to want to know how it got there and who put it there, right?
I want to know. And I hope we find out in our generation. I think it's very possible. If we're going to be going to Mars in the next 5 years, why not go to the moon?
Well, they better have some answers pretty freaking quick, because we're coming, baby. Whether you like it or not,
Let's
human beings are coming.
Questions. Keep asking those questions.
So anyway, guys, let us know what you think. Hit us up on our website, IBelieveInHumans.podcast.com. We do have a contact section there. Feel free to shoot us a message there, or check us out on Instagram, Facebook. Always feel free to message us there. Where else do they find us, Dustin?
I think you covered it there, man.
Right. Check us out on YouTube.
YouTube at I Believe in Humans podcast. Give us smash that like button, subscribe, comment.
Right.
Please review, because that really helps us in the iTunes queue. So
please continue to listen to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. But just drop us a comment, review. It helps us climb the charts there. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. And as always, guys, it's okay to believe.
You're not alone.
Peace.
That's one small step for man.
Welcome there.
One giant leap for mankind.
What's up, man? It's Rick.
UFOs are real.